Joining us now, Senator Bryce Reeves from the Spotsylvania area. That's Fredericksburg. State Senator, Republican. He's up for re-election with all the other state senators in November, and he's also has a primary challenge that he's dealing with, and that'll be decided on June 11th. He's a big favorite there. Hey, Senator, great to have you with us.
Good morning, John. How are you?
I never better. You know, the climate right now, you would seem would favor the Republicans. You've got the Kathy Tran infanticide bill. Still, a lot of people were kind of shocked by that, what kind of path the Democrats were going down. Senator, you've got the lieutenant governor mired in a potential in rape allegations. He tried to buy a table at the annual Democrats of Virginia dinner. They wouldn't let him buy a table. They gave him his money back. Ralph Northam, the governor, can't leave the mansion without going under a tunnel. Can't go to a fundraiser. Can't go to an event. He's met with protesters. And nobody wants to deal with the Attorney General, Mark Herring. You would think that the climate in 2019 for Republicans is pretty favorable, right?
Well, I do, but in the same breath, John, I would say that, those things have kind of gone by the wayside in some aspect. I think they'll come back as we get closer and out of the primary season and into the general election. I think you'll see Republicans especially highlight that against their Democrat opponents. They're not getting rid of those fleas quite so fast, but it's the inaction of the minority party, at least, to hold their own elected officials accountable. And I think that those chickens will come home to roost. I hope so. I know when I talk to the folks in our district, they're like, how can all these guys still be in office? And, that's the question. That's the quandary there is if we fail to remove some of these guys from office, we set a new standard. And, what is that standard for Virginia? And I think that's the question that we all ponder is, gosh, the lieutenant governor, a little bit different situation. I'm a guy, a former cop who believes in still the standard of innocent until proven guilty. And I think, rather than be tried in the court of public opinion, I think, somehow they need to bring this thing forward. If those women and the allegations are there, then bring them forward to law enforcement, let them investigate and charge the lieutenant governor and let that go forward. But, that's their own internal party strife. We have that same issue in the Republican Party. There are a few of us that have primaries, and we've got to get through June.
What do you think of this mess going on in the 97th district? Is this an embarrassment or what? There's a convention, then there's a primary. Now there's not a primary. There's not a convention. I mean, as one of the leaders of the party, don't you think it's high time the Republicans got their act together in this stuff?
Man, I couldn't agree with you more, because if we don't take care and clean our house now and get things straight, I sent a text to the chairman of RPB telling him, like, look, let the lower units handle their business and take care of it. Primaries are primaries and conventions and our nomination methods. That's internal party business. Let them handle it before RPB gets involved, and I don't think that was the case. And so it's caused a lot of consternation in unit committees. It hadn't brought unity. It's always difficult after a primary fight to bring the two factions together, and it's going to take leadership, and it's going to take leadership now, because this is the precursor to 2020. And, I'm glad you brought that up, John, because I want to bring up something to your listeners, and I want them to hear what I'm saying. Is, John, you and I both know we kind of had a disagreement, and we've come together, and we kind of put that behind us, and, we tend to look forward instead of looking back. And looking forward to 2020, our country's never been righted so fast by such a leader as Donald Trump. And I think for Virginia, now this is me personally talking here, I think for Virginia, we need a chairman this time in 2020 that has that vision for the state, that can bring people together, bring those independents or those Democrats and make them independents, and make those independents Republicans, and espouse the ideals that the Republican Party stands for, those Reagan principles. And I'm going to make a pitch today, because I think, you were one of Trump's biggest supporters, biggest fans early on. And I think I'm going to make a pitch to your listeners. I think you ought to put your hat in the ring to be chairman for Trump for Virginia. I think you could probably lead that way. I think you have the personality, you have the demeanor, you have the poise. And I hope your listeners hear what I'm saying. I'm going to start a movement to draft John Fredericks as chairman for Trump campaign in 2020.
Well, Senator Reeves, so kind of you to say that. I really appreciate it. And with all due enthusiasm, I accept your draft. I would love to be the chairman of the Trump campaign in 2020. And I thank you for that ringing endorsement. And I think, look, I think that I can articulate the president's positions and defend them probably on TV and other media as well as anybody. But really the key is bringing the disparate factions together, because once we get to 2020, Virginia is not going to be targeted or looked at as one of the key battleground states. But should I have the opportunity to take you up on your draft and become chairman, my goal would be to make Virginia the number one of the second tier states. And I think we can be competitive, Senator. You look at 2016 and what we were up against here. We didn't have the Trump results. We were going up against a very popular U.S. Senator as Vice President Tim Kaine. We were going up against a very powerful governor that still had the reins of the governorship and all that power behind him, Terry McAuliffe. Those two elements are gone, and now we have results behind us. We don't know who the nominee is going to be. But having said all that, we lost Virginia by 4.5 points. It was competitive. And, we also had to go through, lies about us pulling out of the campaign and things of that nature that I had to deal with in the final weeks. And we had very little resources except a great team on the ground. So, look,
Right.
I appreciate that. And I think it would be fabulous if we could all work together and maybe pull the upset. I mean, I think, honestly, that Trump has an outside chance to win Virginia in 2020 if we all are going in the same direction.
Well, I agree, and I think that starts this year. I think New Jersey has elections this year. No one's going to look to New Jersey to turn Republican. They're going to look to see what the indicators are in Virginia, what's going on, especially with the Democrats wounded right now. And they've got a ton of primaries as well. Some of our most liberal members, elected members, are getting primary because they're not liberal enough. So, I think this is going to kind of be a bellwether this year. And I think, we certainly could use a shot in the arm. I think, you do have that ability to be there. I remember, I think we were up there for the French president's visit, and I saw you up there, and you were with a bunch of the other journalists, and you certainly know the administration, you know what they've done. And I mean, you can articulate that. And I think that's what we need. We really need strong leadership going into 2020 from the grassroots level up. Somebody who can truly articulate the president's vision, what he's done, his performance, his past performance. And we do have some of these things behind us, like the Mueller report. And I'm glad to see Attorney General Barr assigning somebody to investigate the underlying probable cause for the original investigation. I think that'll work its way out. And, I think if I'm a Democrat and I'm involved in the higher echelons of that whole thing, I'd be a little worried because Barr is not going to be deterred, and neither is the president. I mean, imagine being a CEO of a company under the duress that the president has to, and yet he still functions, he still maintains his focus, and he keeps things done. And I think that's it. He's delivering results, and he's not backing down. And I think that says a lot about his resolute with regard to just getting everything done. And I think he's the man for a time such as this.
Senator, tell me about your Senate race in the fall. I mean, I've got you winning your primary handily. Obviously, in order to win, people have to turn out on June 11th in your district and vote for you. I don't really think your opponent has marshaled any sort of a viable campaign. I don't even know what his issues are. I think he's opposed to raising the vaping age and the smoking age to 21. I think that's his main issue. I happen to be in favor of that. Anybody that has kids at home are going to be in
Right.
favor of that, to be quite blunt. But so I'm looking ahead of that. You're in a tough race, though, in the fall. The Democrats are going to put a lot of money in your district. They're telling me now that you're vulnerable. How do you win this race?
Same way we won it every time. I mean, hard work, door knocking, getting people out to vote. You're absolutely right. I'll talk about my primary briefly. You know, what's his issue? His issue is Bryce Reeves. You know, we always have folks being here 8 years, not going to please everyone. And I think sometimes there's some folks in the party that if they can't control you, they try to destroy you. And that's been the mantra of my opponent the whole time. He hasn't put out one positive, thing about anything. So we've stayed on the positive side of the ledger, and we're going to stay focused on the things that matter to the people that I know in the district and work on those things. You know, this year we passed comprehensive foster care reform, and we carried the legislation, the omnibus bill. I got bipartisan support. My good friend Janet Howell, Democrat, highest member or one of the highest members on appropriations, helped carry the water for the money and the funding for that. And, you know, we got 140 members of the General Assembly to sign off on foster care reform. Now, how many people have been able to do that, you know? And you look back to McAuliffe, and I got our reciprocity restored and those sort of things. So it is about not losing your conservative values, but leading on issues and bringing people together. And so we'll continue to do that, and that's how we'll win in November. And I'm fully aware that the Democrats are going to dump a ton of money. You know, I border on Charlottesville, and you got Sandra Smith, who gave $15,000 to my opponent for the general, and her husband's a hedge fund manager. I fully expect them to dump even more in it. So, you know, the district has turned even more Democratic, but you know, we tend to lead from the front and bring people together regardless of the issue. You know, and we're not going to change our conservative values because of that. It's just bringing people along to the vision that you have, and I think that's how we'll lead and we'll win. We'll be successful, and you know, it's hard work. It's hard work.
So, your number one issue when you look at the fall. Let's get to your number one and then 2 and 3 big issues. Why should Bryce Reeves get reelected and go back to the state Senate by the people in your district? What are your top issues?
I would I would just say simply performance. You know, I'll give you a quick example of distortion. Right, my primary opponent says, "Oh, I missed 300 votes." Well, you know, when he first hit me with that, I was like, well, maybe, because if you understand how the General Assembly works and you carry, you know, this year's the first year the Senate was limited on bills to 25, but in typical years on a long day, short session, we might carry 35, 40 upwards bills. Well, you can't be hearing a bill at the same time. You got to be testifying a bill, so you have to leave proxy votes in the Senate because we just don't have the same amount of members as the House, right? So sometimes whoever you left a proxy with might not vote you. But since 2014, we tabulated votes, and we know what that is. And, you know, most people, I was surprised that, you know, we voted a little over 21,000 votes in the 6 years from 2014 till today, and that's leaving out 2 years out of the total 8 years I've been there. And we get things done. And it's not just about going down to Richmond and giving great speeches and standing on the floor and saying you're doing this, this, and this, and not producing. We produce. If you want to talk about the veterans' benefits, about what we've done to help active duty military transition from their active status to either reserve or guard or even into veteran status, those things that we have done to change the Commonwealth, to help the people of the Commonwealth. And I think that's what people are going to reelect me for, is because I deliver results. You don't have to like the person to deliver the results. Look at Trump. I mean, there are a lot of people who don't like his personality, but you can't knock the guy. He's delivering. And I think in today's environment, I think that's what people want. They're tired. They are so tired of just watching Washington. Most people don't get to watch Richmond. They hear about some of the things that hit the paper, but it's not day to day. And when they watch Washington today, their stomachs turn, because all it is Democrats took power and now they're going after him, you know, and it was vice versa. And I think that's why I think we're going to get reelected, is because we're successful and we can articulate that story, and we do have a record. And we're proud of that record that we've served with and that we voted on and that what we've done to make a difference in everyday people's lives in our district. And I think when you take care of what I often call the least, the last and the lost among us, and we never forget that, and we take care of those people, and you remain humble, and you're coaching football, and you're coaching lacrosse, and you're going to your church functions, and you're being a member of that community, and people know you care, then people are going to show up and they're going to vote for you.
We're with Senator Bryce Reeves. I've only got a couple more minutes. Bryce Reeves, the senator from the Fredericksburg area, he represents District 17. He's a Republican. He's up for re-election in November. He's also got a primary June 11th. Senator, you talk about results, right? Let's not forget the tax cut that the Republicans delivered to Virginians. That's going to hit in October, and then it's going to be even bigger as you get and you're doing your 2019 returns in 2020. But if you're single, you're going to get a check for $200. All right, couple, family, going to get a check for $400 in the mail. It's a big deal. That's part of the Trump tax cut that just comes, and then that you'll be able to take advantage of the full Trump tax cut aligned with the state in 2019. That's kind of gone under the radar screen. All right, I've got a question here from one of your fans, listeners. This is Ann in Spotsylvania. Ann texts in and says, I have a question for Senator Reeves. Senator Reeves, are you running for Congress or governor, and why or why not?
Well, I would just say this. A lot of people have asked me to run for a lot of different things, but right now I'm running for the Senate in the 17th District because that's what's in front of me. And, next year is a long, long way away at this point to me, and June is less than 30 days. So, as a high school football coach and as a lacrosse coach, I got to take it quarter to quarter. And, there are a lot of great candidates out there that have been floated around that are looking. In fact, I think there was somebody already announced. I don't remember who it was for the 7th, and I think that's great because we've got to have people willing to step up and lead. And right now, I love my job in the Senate. If given the opportunity to serve at a higher level and be an impact player, I'd love the ability to do that. I'm an impact player now, and I like that opportunity. And I don't know many people that wouldn't want to take a promotion at a job. So I'm not going to say no, and I'm not going to say yes, but I can tell you right now I'm 100% focused on the things that matter, and that's what's in front of me, June 11th, and then in November, we've got to get through that. We've got a team we've got to keep together. We have a one-seat majority, and it doesn't do us well if we all do great and somebody loses, and we lose the majority. It's over. It's two seats. It's two seats, John, that prevents us from turning into California or New York, and I don't want to forget that.
That's right.
We're going into the red zone, into the end zone, and we've got to be focused on what matters most. What matters most right now is holding this seat and serving well and finishing strong.
I only have a half a minute. What high school are you coaching football at?
I coach up at Riverbend High School. Coached a JV team along with a good guy, Coach Chet Goodsack, and we coach pretty well together, and we love the game. And there's nothing like getting you focused, especially as a politician, than seeing you pour yourself into young men and watch them grow and be successful and carry on those traits that you think make a good, morally straight leader. And it's not as much about football as it is growing character in young men today, and I think that's important.
I as a former basketball coach, we've talked about that many times.
Oh yeah.
I really get what you're doing, and that is the one thing in my life that I miss is doing that. I just you got to move on in life, but someday I'll get back to it. I'm out of time. Coach Reeves, high school coach, JV football team. Senator Reeves, thanks for being with us. I got to roll. Corey Lewandowski coming up. Keep it right here. Your Godzilla of the Truth in America.